11:08 now on midday, and new this midday, it was back in May of 2020 that George Floyd was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis. And ever since, there has been a movement to change society. Buff State then became one of the first colleges in the country to make a George Floyd Memorial Scholarship. The renewable $10,000 scholarship is given to one incoming freshman each year. This year's winner is Marley DeTulio. She's a freshman at Buff State studying criminal justice. She was one of the 39 applicants. In her winning essay, she wrote about being a black girl who grew up in a predominantly white community in Syracuse. She says after George Floyd was killed, she didn't even want to leave her house.
I grew up in a white community, and I was always feel like I was looked at as a token black kid. And when I was jogging, I was afraid, because I wasn't doing anything wrong, neither was George Floyd. So I was just afraid if I was jogging around my neighborhood, something could happen to me, if something could happen to him. And it was just really scary for the black community, and it's still really scary.
She went on to say that the financial assistance was also a big deal for her family. Well, now she's happy to be at a school that is diverse and inclusive, something she says that she wasn't always used to growing up.
All right, guys, so as you know, the Supreme Court ruled that affirmative action is illegal, aka racial discrimination is illegal, right? Racism from higher education institutions is unconstitutional, right? You can't do that, okay? And that has a downstream effect that's going to affect more than just admissions, right? There is a huge debate about whether or not this ruling applies to so-called minority and diversity scholarships. And there are some programs that are pausing their so-called minority and diversity scholarships because they don't know if it's actually constitutional, considering how the Supreme Court basically said, look, you can't discriminate based off race when it comes to admissions. So that naturally is going to result in stories like this involving Minnesota University's George Floyd Scholarship that is exclusively for black students. Now, this scholarship has sparked a lawsuit and discrimination complaints because, of course, it's racist, right? It is a scholarship named after George Floyd, which in a sane country should never happen, right? We should never have a scholarship to go to a higher education institute named after somebody that literally represents the exact opposite of what higher education institutions are supposed to be producing, which are positive contributors to society. But regardless, this scholarship was exclusively for black students. And this university decided to offer this scholarship during the George Floydification of America, because there's a ton of scholarships now out there that are being named after George Floyd that are targeted towards so-called minorities. Again, as a part of the wokeification, the George Floydification of America. So I want to read a little bit about what's happening here so you guys can get the basics about what's going on. And then I'm going to play a news clip showing some reactions from woke activists over this lawsuit against this university that is offering this scholarship. And I'm going to tell you guys what I think about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. A Minnesota college scholarship named after George Floyd and only available to black students sparked a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, as one critic called it racism. North Central University's exclusion of non-black students is, quote, insidious discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin, according to the complaint from the conservative legal advocacy group, the Equal Protection Project of the Legal Insurrection Foundation. Quote, discrimination against white applicants is just as awful as discrimination against black or other non-white applicants. Foundation President William Jacobson and project member Amir Bino wrote in the complaint filed with the DOE Office of Civil Rights. Yeah, so in a nutshell, essentially the complaint is that this school, which is a private Christian school, by the way, apparently they're taking federal funds, even though they're a private school, so they would be subject to these federal regulations. But they're essentially saying that, this is a restriction, the racial discrimination violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay, so that's the allegation. So Without further ado, I actually want to go ahead and play a news clip to get the opinion of activists on what's going on with this story. Take a look.
Scrutiny over a scholarship created in the honor of George Floyd. The scholarship is offered exclusively to black students at North Central University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A lawsuit filed by Equal Protection Project of the Legal Insurrection Foundation is calling the scholarship discriminatory and a violation of the civil rights law passed back in 1964. Now, in a statement, Equal Protection founder William Jacobson says, quote, regardless of the purpose of the racial discrimination, it is wrong and unlawful. Joining us to talk about it, pastor and journalist Dr. Ruth Olson and investigator Arthur Silky Slim Reed. Glad to have you here both on The Factor Uncensored. Obviously, those who set up this scholarship wanted to help black students. But when you hear their argument saying, look, you are discriminating. What if we had a white-only scholarship? Your thoughts on this, Doctor?
That's the way it's been 400 years. So
Explain that to those who may not get it.
Yeah, black people have been locked out of the system, many of the systems. And it was only, 1863, when black people were able to get anything. And so you have, like, and even now, it's difficult. So don't get me wrong, I love being black. I love the everything about it, except that it's kind of hard in the country sometimes. But we've been locked out of so many things for so many reasons for so long, and someone uses their money, their effort to put a scholarship together to say, hey, let's try to even the playing field. What's wrong with that?
And Arthur, do you see this as part of the campaign against diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI? We've seen a push against that at many state universities that may receive state funding. Do you think this is the next level of that?
Almost definitely. Like she said, 1861, when blacks were fighting to be a part of contracts for white folks. So now they're reversing that 1861 thing and making it a modern day form of an attack on all blacks. As you've seen with the Fearless Fund, they went after the young ladies who had the Fearless Fund, saying that they couldn't do what they were doing to help black women of color start businesses. And like she say, we have been held back so long by these racist attacks. And unfortunately, for some of us, not all of us, but for some of us, we ran off the wolf and let the fox run free in the yard. And the fox has the same appetite as the wolf, but a more friendly way of attacking his prey. So now we're so comfortable, and now these things are happening. And I think that it's good that it's happening right now, because it's starting us to have to get back to doing what we were doing at first, work again. Everybody's kicked back on vacation. It's time to work again. Get away from all the social media and the reality TV and look at the reality of life, because they're trying to set us back to where we were.
And Dr. Olson, what would be your advice to those who say this is part of that DEI movement? How do you even combat that?
It's, of course,
besides what Arthur said, get back to work,
yeah,
wake up.
It's anti-DEI. It's anti-diversity inclusion. So I said, when the thing with George Floyd first happened and Black Lives Matter rose up higher, I said, you know what? I really hope that's true. I really hope Black Lives Matter. But black lives have to matter first to us. I can't, no, it doesn't matter to me that everybody else thinks Black Lives Matter. It matters to me, what I think of me and what I think of black people. And I love us. I think we are great. I think we're amazing that we survived. And so, yes, there is that attack. It's a backlash. There's a spirit in the country now that is rolling back, that's, you know, rearing its ugly head. And it's terrible. It's really bad. We don't have to be like that.
And how do you fight that movement when it's coming from as high as the Supreme Court, where they're getting rid of affirmative action at colleges and universities? How do you guys even combat that? What's your suggestion to dealing with that if you have the highest court in the nation saying, look, all of this that you guys were given is now wrong?
Well, we were taught in my generation to be the best.
And I don't want to say given, earned. or work
That's
for.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. You have to be the best. You have to earn it. And
Yeah, so if you were taught that you have to be the best and you have to earn it, then what's the problem? What's the issue? If you were taught that you have to be the best and you have to earn it, what is the problem? What's the issue? I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, like, you can't say that you were taught to be the best, you have to earn it, but then boohoo, whine, and complain because there's a lawsuit against what seems to be an unlawful scholarship. I mean, you're giving out a scholarship based off race. And what really blows my mind about these people is that they are complaining, saying that, well, you have people in this country that want to take us back to the past when the past was segregation, right? Segregation was the past. By definition, when you have, these colleges and universities that are using race as a basis of admission, then that's racial discrimination, right? That's what we're trying to get away from. That's what we're trying to move towards, okay? That's a society that I thought that everybody wanted. We wanted a society where, we're not taking race into consideration when it comes to everything, right? I thought that we were trying to achieve a post-racial society, but, every time we take a step forward to get in that direction, the woke activists boohoo, whine, and cry foul, right? As if they want to go back to Jim Crow. That's what I don't get. That's what I don't understand, okay? Because, look, here's the thing. The only thing this lawsuit is saying is that, well, this college, because it's federally funded, even though it's a private school, yeah, I mean, they can't offer a race-based scholarship, but that's not going to get rid of race-based scholarships. Race-based scholarships are still going to exist if a private organization wants to pool money together and say, hey, we're just going to give money to black students to go to school. They can do that, right? Nothing's stopping them from doing that. In fact, California is a state that has operated for a long time now without affirmative action. And if you go and you search for minority scholarships to, for example, go to a school like the University of Berkeley, there are plenty of them there, right? You just can't use taxpayer dollars to fund these scholarships, okay? So again, a lot of these people go boohoo, whine, and cry about this, but this is not the end of so-called minority scholarships. It just has to be done privately, like truly privately, in a way in which, you're not using taxpayer dollars in order to discriminate, okay? But again, what will happen as a result of affirmative action is that a lot of these schools are going to have to roll back their diversity initiatives because it is unlawful, right? It's not right. It's not right to discriminate against anybody based off their race. It is what it is. Again, we would all agree with this if, for example, they offered a whites-only scholarship. I think people would say, well, that's not right, right? We shouldn't be having anything for whites only. But that logic goes out the window when it comes to everybody else. Everybody else, though, deserves some special thing just for them, okay? But no, whites can't do that. And there's no way that we can actually get to a post-racial society when that is what we're doing, right? Again, I mean, any type of racism is racism, regardless of whether it's against whites, whether it's against blacks. Racism is racism. So again, a lot of these so-called minority scholarships are going to get challenged based off discrimination and racism, and rightfully so, because in the post-affirmative action world, we really shouldn't have this, right? We really should not be dealing with this type of overt racial discrimination, okay? And if the woke revolutionaries want to be mad about it, hey, it is what it is, man. I mean, you guys, the ones that said that, hey, you want racial equality, this is racial equality, right? This is racial equality, okay? Because there have been white-only scholarships, like, for example, the scholarship at Columbia University that was challenged, right? They said, oh, it was racist to do that, right? It's racist to have a white-only scholarship. Okay, cool. Well, we got to apply that standard across the board. And, it is what it is. So, again, a lot of these scholarships will get challenged. If a whites-only scholarship ever pops up that is offered by a federally funded institution, okay, or a institution that takes federal funds, then I will encourage you to challenge it. And I will actually support you in that challenge, right? I will say you are correct, right? You would be correct to challenge a whites-only scholarship that's being offered by an institution that's funded by the federal government, right? I will be consistent in that, right? But again, I'm not sure how many of those will pop up. I'm just saying that, this is what equality looks like, in the woke revolutionaries that claim they want equality you know, they don't really like it, right? They're not really going to like what they asked for. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.